The Legend of the Chupacabra, an epic of fear, mystery, and folklore. The story of the Chupacabra begins in the dark, tangled forests of Puerto Rico, but its roots stretch far deeper into the collective fears of humanity. In the mid-1990s, this enigmatic creature leaped into public consciousness, forever cementing its place in modern folklore. Yet, to understand the legend of the Chupacabra, we must delve not only into the strange and chilling events that birthed it, but also into the cultural, historical, and psychological forces that keep it alive today. In 1995, a series of disturbing incidents shattered the tranquility of Puerto Rico's rural communities. Farmers awoke to scenes of devastation in their fields, livestock killed in the dead of night, their bodies drained of blood. Chickens, goats, and sheep lay motionless, their necks marred by twin puncture wounds, as if something had deliberately exsanguinated them. At first, the people of Covina thought a wild predator was responsible. But as the deaths continued without any signs of struggle, no claw marks, no scattered feathers or fur, fear began to take hold. The deaths were too precise to calculate it. Then came the sighting. Madeline Tolentino, a resident of Covina, claimed to have seen the creature responsible for the carnage. Her description was like nothing anyone had ever heard. A bipedal creature standing around 4 feet tall, its hairless, leathery skin glinting under the moonlight. A row of sharp spines ran from the top of its head down its back, and its glowing red eyes pierced the darkness. The creature moved swiftly, its clawed feet barely making a sound as it disappeared into the forest. News of her account spread rapidly, and soon the locals gave the beast a name, El Chupacabra, or the goat sucker. The Chupacabra legend quickly became the subject of speculation. Where had it come from? What was it? Theories abounded, each more bizarre than the last. Some said it was a product of government experimentation, a creature born in secret laboratories hidden deep within Puerto Rico's dense rainforests. Others pointed to UFO sightings in the region, speculating that the Chupacabra was not of this earth, but rather an alien being left behind or unleashed by extraterrestrials. Those with an eye toward the supernatural believed it to be a demon or a cursed creature, summoned or created through dark rituals. This belief tied the Chupacabra to older, pre-Columbian folklore of blood-drinking entities like the Aztec Tlahuelpuchi, a vampire like being said to prey on children. In this way, the Chupacabra became a modern incarnation of ancient fears, a bridge between myth and reality. Skeptics, of course, dismissed these ideas entirely. Zoologists suggested that the Chupacabra was simply a misidentified predator, likely a coyote or feral dog suffering from mange. The disease would cause the animal to lose its fur, giving it an otherworldly appearance, while the weakened state of such creatures might explain the unusual killing patterns. But even with these rational explanations, belief in the Chupacabra persisted and spread. In the years following the first sightings in Puerto Rico, reports of Chupacabra attacks began to emerge across Latin America and beyond. In Mexico, farmers claimed the creature was stalking their lands, leaving behind the same signature wounds on their livestock. Similar stories came from Chile, Brazil, and even the United States. The descriptions varied. Some described the Chupacabra as a reptilian, almost dragon-like creature, while others depicted it as a gaunt, canine-like figure with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. In Texas, a rancher captured what he believed to be a Chupacabra, a hairless, emaciated creature resembling a dog. When scientists examined the body, they identified it as a coyote afflicted with severe mange. Yet the discovery did little to quell the legend. To believers, the Chupacabra was more than a physical entity. It was an embodiment of their fears, a symbol of the unknown, lurking just beyond the edges of civilization. As the Chupacabra's fame grew, so too did its influence on popular culture. News outlets reported on alleged sightings with sensational headlines, while documentaries and TV shows delved into the mystery of the goat-sucker. Cryptozoologists, the self-appointed hunters of mythical creatures, descended on Puerto Rico with cameras, traps, and high hopes, but none could capture definitive evidence of the beast. Meanwhile, the Chupacabra found its way into films, books, and even merchandise. It became a pop culture icon, its terrifying origins softened by its growing familiarity. Yet, for those who had experienced its alleged attacks firsthand, the Chupacabra remained a very real and very frightening presence. Today, the Chupacabra exists in a strange space between reality and myth. Scientists and skeptics continue to argue that the creature is a fabrication, a combination of mass hysteria, misidentified animals, and the human tendency to craft stories in the face of the unknown. But for believers, the lack of evidence only deepens the mystery. Stories of the Chupacabra still surface from time to time, often in rural areas where livestock deaths defy explanation. Whether these reports are the result of folklore perpetuating itself or genuine encounters with an unknown creature is a question that may never be answered. The Chupacabra's enduring power lies in what it represents: the fear of the dark, the anxiety of being watched by unseen eyes, and the thrill of confronting the unknown. Like the vampires and werewolves of older legends, the Chupacabra reflects humanity's primal fears of predators, of losing control, of the blood that ties us to life. Perhaps the Chupacabra is nothing more than a story, a product of human imagination run wild. Or perhaps, somewhere in the forests and fields, it still stalks the night, waiting for its next victim. Whether real or imagined, the Chupacabra's legend continues to grow, reminding us that some mysteries are more powerful when left unsolved. The story of the Annabelle doll is deeply embedded in paranormal lore, a blend of real-life events and Hollywood embellishments that have transformed it into one of the most chilling tales of demonic possession in modern history. The tale is rooted in the experiences of real-life paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who became involved in the case in the 1970s. Here's a longer, more detailed retelling of the entire haunting story. The story of the Annabelle doll begins in 1970, when Donna, a nursing student in Connecticut, received a Raggedy Ann doll as a birthday gift from her mother. Donna shared an apartment with her friend Angie, and the doll seemed to be a harmless addition to their home. The two women, like most young adults, thought little of it at first. But soon after bringing the doll into their lives, unsettling events began to unfold. Donna and Angie started to notice that the doll would move on its own. It wasn't just that it would change positions slightly. Sometimes it would appear in places where they were sure they hadn't left it, such as on the couch or standing against a wall. These small but unnerving shifts in the doll's placement were the first sign that something was wrong. The disturbances didn't stop with the doll's movements. Donna and Angie began finding handwritten notes throughout the apartment. These notes, written on parchment paper, contained eerie messages, such as, "Help us" and "Help Lou." The strange part was that neither Donna nor Angie had ever seen the parchment paper before, nor did they know where the notes came from. They couldn't explain how the messages appeared in their apartment. While Donna and Angie tried to ignore the events, their friend Lou soon experienced something far more terrifying. Lou, who had been skeptical of the doll's sinister reputation, was about to be introduced to something far worse. Lou, who frequently visited Donna and Angie's apartment, started experiencing increasingly disturbing events. One night, Lou fell asleep in the apartment and had a terrifying dream in which the doll climbed onto his chest and began choking him. He woke up, gasping for air, convinced that something was horribly wrong with the doll. The next time he visited, he claimed to have experienced something even more frightening. As he entered Donna's room, he suddenly felt a sharp, intense pain in his chest, as if something was physically attacking him. When he looked down, he saw what appeared to be deep claw marks across his torso. The marks healed surprisingly quickly within a couple of days, but they were a physical manifestation of the malevolent presence that had attached itself to the doll. Terrified by the escalating events, Donna and Angie contacted a medium to help them understand the situation. During a seance, the medium revealed that the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins. According to the medium, Annabelle was a young girl who had died tragically in the area, and her spirit had somehow latched onto the doll, feeling comforted by its presence. Annabelle, as the medium explained, wanted to stay with Donna and Angie, believing them to be kindred spirits. At first, Donna and Angie were sympathetic. They thought that allowing the spirit of a young girl to stay with them would be a compassionate act. But things soon grew far more dangerous. As Donna and Angie continued to allow the spirit of Annabelle to stay with them, the activity in the apartment grew darker. What they had originally assumed was a harmless spirit was revealed to be something far more malevolent. The presence within the doll began to manipulate its surroundings, moving beyond simple physical phenomena like shifting positions. Objects were thrown around the apartment, doors slammed shut on their own, and strange sounds echoed throughout the space. Soon, the Warrens were called in for help. Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned for their work in paranormal investigations, were quick to realize that the entity wasn't a harmless spirit at all, but something far more sinister, a demon. The demon, the Warrens believed, was using the doll as a vessel, hoping to possess one of the apartment's residents, likely Donna. The Warrens noted that the demon's goal was not just to manifest as a spirit, but to slowly gain the trust of the residents, with the ultimate aim of taking control of their bodies and minds. Ed and Lorraine Warren performed an exorcism in the apartment and immediately removed the doll. They explained that the demon had likely been influencing the apartment's occupants for some time, subtly gaining power over them through the spirit of Annabelle. After the exorcism, the Warrens decided to take the doll with them, believing it was far too dangerous to remain in Donna and Angie's home. They transported Annabelle to their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, where she was placed in a glass case with a sign warning. Warning, positively do not open. The case was meant to contain the evil spirit that had attached itself to the doll, but even in captivity, the malevolent presence was said to continue causing havoc. Though safely contained, the curse of Annabelle did not cease. Visitors to the Warrens Occult Museum reported feeling uneasy around the doll, some claiming they could hear knocking sounds coming from the case. Others spoke of the doll's eyes seeming to follow them as they passed. The most chilling incident occurred when a young man visited the museum and mocked Annabelle. Laughing off the warnings, he tapped on the glass and made fun of the doll. He left the museum, only to die in a motorcycle accident shortly after. The Warrens believed the demon behind Annabelle had been provoked by the young man's disrespect, and that the fatal accident was a direct result of angering the entity. Many paranormal enthusiasts also claim to have felt a sudden, inexplicable chill or unease while near the doll, with some even experiencing physical harm, including accidents or fainting. The story of Annabelle soon gained widespread attention, particularly after it was featured in the Conjuring movies and their spin-offs. The doll was reimagined as a porcelain figure with a backstory involving satanic rituals and violent events, vastly more elaborate than the original account. While these cinematic adaptations have added layers of fiction, they remain based on the Warrens' testimony and the real-life events surrounding the doll. Today, Annabelle still resides in the Warrens Occult Museum, now managed by their son-in-law, Tony Spera, encased in glass, where she remains one of the most famous paranormal artifacts in the world. Despite the doll's confinement, its story continues to intrigue and frighten, ensuring that Annabelle's legacy will live on for years to come. Whether you choose to believe in the story of Annabelle or dismiss it as an exaggerated tale, Her place in paranormal history is undeniable. The real Annabelle doll, a humble Raggedy Ann, now stands as a symbol of the power of belief, fear, and the strange ways in which spirits and demons can connect with the living.
The Legend of Kuntilanak. The Kuntilanak, or Pontianak, is one of the most enduring and terrifying figures in Southeast Asian folklore, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia. Her tale is a dark fusion of tragedy, vengeance, and the supernatural, woven into the fabric of the region's cultural beliefs and ghost stories. To understand the depth of the Kuntilanak's legend, one must first delve into her origins, the many variations of the story, and the chilling encounters that keep her name alive. The Kuntilanak is said to be the restless spirit of a woman who died a tragic and violent death, often during childbirth or while pregnant. In many versions of the story, she was wronged by a man, either a lover, husband, or someone who betrayed her in some way before she met her untimely demise. In some tellings, the Kuntilanak was a woman who died giving birth, her child also perishing, trapped in the moment of the cruelest tragedy. Other versions suggest that she was murdered, either by a lover, a relative, or even in childbirth, left to die in agony with her baby's death at her side. The most common version explains that the Kuntilanak was a woman whose husband abandoned her during pregnancy, or worse, had caused her death through violent means. This betrayal ties her death to the vengeance that she seeks in the afterlife. Others say that she was simply a woman who died from the dangerous complications of childbirth, her soul disturbed by the untimely and unnatural end. Once she died, her spirit was unable to find peace. Instead of resting, she became a force of unrelenting rage, doomed to haunt the living. The Kuntilanak is born from the tragedy of the unfulfilled life of the woman, and from the way in which her body and soul were treated after her death. She is a ghost of vengeance, an embodiment of betrayal and suffering. Her death left her spirit thirsting for justice she could never receive in life. In some versions of the tale, the Kuntilanak is described as a pregnant woman in the final stages of labor, screaming in pain as she is left to die alone. The agony of childbirth, combined with the injustice of her death, twisted her spirit into something vengeful. In other accounts, she became a ghoul with a twisted, contorted appearance, her spirit driven mad by the unresolved pain and torment of her passing. The Kuntilanak is most often depicted as a woman in a long white gown. At first glance, she is stunningly beautiful, a young woman with delicate features, pale skin, and long black hair that cascades down to her waist. Her appearance is meant to lure people into her trap, especially men who are drawn to her beauty. She is, in essence, a seductive spirit, using her appearance to lure unsuspecting victims. However, there is something disturbing about her beauty. The long hair that covers her face hides the truth of her appearance. Once a victim draws close enough, the Kuntilanak reveals her true face, a hideous decayed visage of a woman's corpse. Her eyes glow a fiery red, a reflection of the anger that fuels her existence. Her skin, once soft and smooth, is now rotting, with parts of it missing, exposing the decaying flesh beneath. Her nails are long and sharp, resembling claws. Her appearance is sometimes described as a creature with an unsettling mix of beauty and grotesque horror, a duality that mirrors her tragic existence. Her beauty serves only to mask the terror she brings, and her decayed features reflect the anguish of her death. The spirit is not just a simple ghost. She is an embodiment of the horror that resulted from an unnatural death. The Kuntilanak's hauntings are far from simple. She does not merely wander aimlessly. Her presence is deeply tied to the locations she haunts. Her favored places are those that have a dark, unsettling quality: abandoned houses, dark forests, and areas that are far from the safety of civilization. The Kuntilanak is most commonly associated with banana trees and dense jungles, where her spirit is said to lurk, waiting for her next victim. One of the key characteristics of the Kuntilanak's haunting is the sound of her eerie laughter or crying. The sound of her laughter is often high-pitched and childlike, luring people closer with a false sense of security. She is often heard crying as well, sometimes sobbing as if in mourning, which further draws people toward her. This is a deceptive tactic, as she can appear weak and vulnerable, but in reality, she is a force of malevolent power. Once an unfortunate soul comes close enough, the Kuntilanak will reveal her true form, often attacking her prey with her long claws or by sucking their life force. She is known to prey on children, luring them away from their homes and families, but her greatest fury is often directed at men who have wronged women, especially those who have betrayed or harmed them. These men often meet mysterious and violent deaths, with no trace left behind except for their terrified expressions and the terror of the Kuntilanak's curse. As she grows stronger, she can make her presence known with a strong scent of frangipani flowers, which she uses to mask her deathly stench. As her prey draws closer, the flower's sweet aroma fades into a foul, putrid smell, decay, and death. This is when the victim realizes they are about to encounter something beyond the human world. The Kuntilanak is not just a physical manifestation of vengeance. She possesses a range of supernatural abilities. She has the power to shapeshift, often transforming into a beautiful woman or a vulnerable child to deceive her victims. Once a man or woman gets close enough, she will show her true nature. Her ability to manipulate the environment is also well documented, causing sudden winds, chilling drops in temperature, or strange sounds that signal her approach. Her most terrifying power, however, is her ability to enter the dreams and minds of her victims. Those who encounter her often report strange nightmares and vivid hallucinations. Her spirit reaches out from the darkness of the night, haunting those who have wronged her and making them relive her death through terrifying visions. Her touch can drain the life from her victims, leaving them weak, sickly, or dead. There are also stories of the Kuntilanak's ability to control the elements. She can summon violent storms or deadly winds to trap her prey in her domain. These winds are said to disorient her victims, making it impossible to escape. Once she has them in her grasp, she can drain their life force or simply make them vanish, their bodies never to be found. In the face of such a terrifying spirit, the people of Southeast Asia have developed various methods to protect themselves from the Kuntilanak. One common belief is that iron or sharp objects, such as nails, can repel her. It is said that driving a nail into the ground or into a spot on her head or neck can weaken her spirit, forcing her to retreat. Other protective measures include placing garlic or sharp objects around the home, particularly in the doorway. The idea is that these things are unappealing to the Kuntilanak, as her spirit is weakened by the strength of iron or pungent smells. In some stories, a person who encounters the Kuntilanak is said to need to escape quickly, because she is most dangerous when she feels threatened or cornered. There are also superstitions that suggest the Kuntilanak can be appeased by offering gifts, such as food or flowers, though this is a more obscure part of her legend. In some versions of the myth, offering her a child or a husband who has wronged her could satisfy her hunger for revenge. In recent years, the legend of the Kuntilanak has grown in popularity, especially in movies and television. Films, particularly those from Indonesia and Malaysia, have made the Kuntilanak a household name in the horror genre. Directors have taken liberties with her appearance, sometimes portraying her as a more horrific monster, but often staying true to the themes of betrayal and vengeance that are at the heart of her legend. Her story has also become a symbol of the power of the supernatural, a representation of the dangers of unresolved grief and the consequences of mistreating others. The Kuntilanak remains a powerful figure in Southeast Asian horror, as her legend evolves into a modern fear that taps into the deeper emotions of loss, betrayal, and justice. The Kuntilanak is more than just a ghost. She is a symbol of the intersection of life and death, of love and violence. She continues to haunt the forests and streets, lurking in the corners of stories passed down through generations. Her legend is both a warning and a reflection of the cultural importance of women's voices, the dangers of betrayal, and the lingering power of unavenged spirits. As the years pass, the Kuntilanak's legend lives on, adapting to the fears of the modern world, but always remaining rooted in the ancient soil of Southeast Asia. Her tale is a tragic one, a woman who was betrayed, who suffered, and whose soul never found peace. The Kuntilanak is not just a spirit of horror. She is the manifestation of the deepest wounds, the violence. Please don't forget to subscribe if you want contents like this. Thank you.
The real story behind the exorcism of Emily Rose is based on the tragic life and death of Anneliese Michel, a young German woman who became the center of one of the most controversial exorcism cases in history. Welcome to the Vault of Horrors. Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in Leibelfing, Bavaria, West Germany. She was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family and was described as a kind, religious, and intelligent young woman. She was deeply committed to her faith, often attending Mass twice a week. As Anneliese's condition worsened, she reported experiencing terrifying visions, demonic voices, and feelings of being possessed. She described seeing grotesque faces during her prayers and hearing voices commanding her to commit violent acts. These experiences left her convinced that her condition was not purely medical, but spiritual. Her devout family sought help from priests after Anneliese began displaying strange behaviors, such as avoiding religious symbols like crucifixes and holy water, speaking in guttural voices and unknown languages, performing acts of extreme strength and endurance, consuming insects, and drinking her own urine. Despite her worsening condition, doctors continued to treat her with psychiatric medications, but Anneliese and her family were convinced that she was possessed by demonic forces. In 1973, after years of unsuccessful medical treatments, the Michel family approached the Catholic Church, seeking an exorcism. Initially, their requests were denied, as the church required substantial evidence of possession. However, after careful observation, two priests, Father Ernst Alt and Father Arnold Renz, were granted permission to perform an exorcism under strict conditions. In 1975, Anneliese stopped her medical treatments, believing that her condition could only be resolved through spiritual intervention. This decision proved to be a critical turning point. Between September 1975 and July 1976, Father Alt and Father Renz conducted 67 exorcism sessions, each lasting up to 4 hours. These sessions were performed in accordance with the Rituale Romanum, the Catholic Church's official exorcism rite. During the exorcisms, Anneliese displayed violent and disturbing behaviors. She spoke in multiple voices, claiming to be possessed by demons, including Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, and others. She screamed, barked, and contorted her body in unnatural ways. She refused to eat or drink, claiming that the demons were forbidding her from consuming sustenance. Audio recordings from these sessions capture chilling exchanges, with Anneliese's voice changing drastically as she purportedly argued with the demons. On July 1, 1976, after nearly a year of exorcisms, Anneliese Michel died in her home. She was 23 years old and weighed only 68 pounds at the time of her death. The autopsy revealed severe malnutrition and dehydration as the primary causes of death. There were also signs of physical trauma, believed to have been self-inflicted during her struggles. Anneliese reportedly told her family shortly before her death that she believed her suffering was part of a divine plan to save souls. Her last words were allegedly, "Mother, I'm afraid. Following her death, German authorities charged Father Alt, Father Renz, and Anneliese's parents with negligent homicide. The trial, held in 1978, drew widespread media attention and sparked intense debates about faith, medicine, and mental health. The prosecution argued that Anneliese's death was avoidable and that she should have received medical care instead of exorcisms. They presented medical testimony that her symptoms were consistent with epilepsy and psychosis. The defense argued that Anneliese was genuinely possessed and that the exorcisms were her only hope. They cited the recordings as evidence of supernatural phenomena and claimed that her death was a result of divine intervention. The court ultimately found the priests and Anneliese's parents guilty of manslaughter, sentencing the priests to 6 months in prison, later suspended, and 3 years of probation. The parents were not punished, as the court determined they had suffered enough. Anneliese Michel's story remains a polarizing topic. To some, she was a devout believer who sacrificed herself for a higher purpose. To others, her death is a tragic example of the dangers of religious extremism and the failure of modern medicine to address severe mental illness. Her grave in Klingenberg am Main became a site of pilgrimage for many, with some believers considering her a martyr. The Catholic Church has distanced itself from the case, emphasizing that exorcisms are rare and only performed under strict guidelines. The case of Anneliese Michel continues to provoke questions about the boundaries between faith and science, the nature of mental illness, and the existence of the supernatural. Her story, immortalized in films like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, serves as a haunting reminder of the complexities of human belief and suffering. From a scientific perspective, it is seen as a tragic outcome of untreated mental and neurological illnesses, exacerbated by the cessation of medical care and the influence of religious beliefs. Her death highlights the need for a balanced approach that respects faith while prioritizing medical treatment. From a religious perspective, her suffering is regarded by some as evidence of genuine demonic possession, with her exorcism seen as a spiritual battle. Others see it as a misinterpretation of mental illness through the lens of extreme religiosity. Ultimately, Anneliese's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of neglecting mental health care and the complex interplay between faith, medicine, and cultural beliefs. This is Vault of Horrors. Thank you for watching.
The Covina Massacre is a deeply disturbing event, and the details of what led to the massacre reveal a complex mix of personal grievances, rage, and premeditation. Here's a more detailed account of the whole tragedy. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo was a 45-year-old man living in the Los Angeles area. He had been married to Sylvia Pardo for several years, but the couple separated in 2006 and ultimately divorced in 2008. Despite the divorce, Bruce remained bitter and angry, particularly over the division of their assets. Sylvia's family had never been particularly fond of him, and Bruce had been known to be controlling and difficult. After the separation, he continued to harbor resentment, which would later culminate in the tragic events of Christmas Eve 2008. On December 24, 2008, Sylvia Pardo's family gathered for their annual Christmas Eve celebration at her parents' house in Covina, California. The family had no idea that Bruce would show up, and the night was meant to be a festive occasion. Around 11:30 p.m., about 25 family members and friends were in the house, enjoying food, drinks, and the holiday spirit. Bruce, however, was planning something far darker. He had spent the days leading up to Christmas preparing for the massacre. One of his main tools was an elaborate disguise. He dressed in a Santa Claus suit, which helped him avoid immediate recognition as he entered the house. Bruce arrived at the Pardo household in his Santa suit, carrying a suitcase filled with weapons. Inside the suitcase was a semi-automatic handgun and a revolver, along with a homemade flamethrower that would later be used to set the house on fire. He rang the doorbell and, once inside, immediately began his attack. As soon as he entered, he started shooting at the people in the house. He shot and killed Sylvia Pardo, along with several other members of her family. Among the victims were her mother, father, brother, and at least 6 other family members, including her 8-year-old niece. In total, 9 people were killed in the initial shooting. After the killings, Bruce turned on the flamethrower he had rigged, setting the house ablaze. The fire consumed the home, causing further destruction and complicating efforts to identify the victims. However, the flames didn't kill Bruce. He had planned for the fire to cover up evidence of the shootings. After the massacre, Bruce fled the scene in his car, but he didn't go far. He was later tracked to a nearby house in the city of Buena Park, where he was found dead in his car from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Bruce had used a gun to end his own life. The authorities initially had no idea who was responsible for the massacre. However, after investigating the scene and discovering Bruce's ties to the family, they quickly connected him to the attack. In the weeks that followed, it was revealed that Bruce had spent months planning the massacre. His motive appeared to be revenge over the divorce and the perceived injustices in the breakup. He had been deeply angry about his ex-wife's life and the way the divorce settlement had gone. Bruce's meticulous planning included not only the Santa disguise, but also several rounds of therapy to keep up appearances as a normal person, as well as the construction of a flamethrower, which he used to try to destroy the evidence. His suicide was also planned in advance, as he didn't want to be captured. In the aftermath, the victims' families were left devastated by the scale of the massacre. The massacre remains one of the most shocking and gruesome family-related crimes in recent history. It also raised awareness about the psychological toll of divorce and the potential for unaddressed anger or mental health issues to manifest in violent ways. The Covina Massacre became a haunting example of family violence, especially during a time when many people were expecting peace and togetherness for the holidays. The fact that Bruce Jeffrey Pardo dressed as Santa Claus's symbol of joy and happiness only added to the horrifying nature of the attack. The tragedy has been discussed extensively in the media and has inspired debates on the nature of domestic violence, the psychology behind revenge killings, and the need for greater attention to mental health issues. In summary, the Covina Massacre was the result of a bitter divorce and a man's desire for revenge against his ex-wife's family. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo's premeditated actions led to the deaths of 9 people, and his choice to disguise himself as Santa Claus added an extra layer of horror to the crime. The attack ended with his suicide, but the emotional scars left on the surviving family members and the broader community remain to this day. Don't forget to subscribe if you want contents like this. Thank you.